Hi, I'm Jeffrey. Welcome back to Night Falls. Come, settle in for tonight's calming meditation and soothing bedtime story. As always, don't worry if you fall asleep before the end. You can drift off whenever you're ready. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, letting us know which stories you enjoy and what kind of story you would like to hear next. Thanks to LR Jalarned, who said they especially loved Beneath the Northern Lights, as their goal is to see the Aurora Borealis themselves. I hope that dream comes true for you. Come, take a pew by the fireside, as I tell you of the day man-cub Mowgli and Baloo the bear spent wandering through the jungle and basking in its breathtaking natural beauty. Tonight, Mowgli and Baloo are in search of the peace and quiet that only lazy rivers and hidden trails can afford them. In my travels, I learned that there is truly nowhere more naturally abundant than the jungle. Every inch of it is dense enough to sustain life, and each individual mile of it is the whole world for some of the smaller creatures dwelling there. Before you're transported deep into the heart of the jungle, let's take a moment to relax and wind down after another long day. Come to a comfortable position and draw a deep breath in through your nose. As you breathe out through your mouth, allow your eyes to gently drift closed. Enjoy a moment of peace as the quiet of the night drifts into your body on your in-breath. As you exhale, feel yourself drifting into a state of deep relaxation. Breathe in and out. Inhale and exhale. Lying there relaxing, know that this is your time, your space. You're safe, mind and body. Draw a deep breath in and feel your chest open up to grant you a little more space to breathe, to be. As you exhale, vow to let your guard down, to let go of the instincts that protect you in the daylight hours. Tonight, there is only you, drifting off into relaxation. Drawing a final deep breath in, welcome the need for sleep into your body. And as you exhale, give yourself over to the growing weight of exhaustion. Tonight, grant yourself the time to rest, to relax, and to reconnect with your inner peace as you leave behind the chaos and clatter of the daylight hours and join Mowgli and Baloo in rediscovering the natural wonders of the jungle. On a gloriously sunny morning, a brown bear by the name of Baloo stepped out of his cave and lifted his arms high above his head in a long, satisfying stretch. It was yet another beautiful day in the jungle. It was the perfect day for not doing much at all. Baloo decided there was nothing that could make the day more pleasant, save for spending it in good company. He walked away from his cave and shortly arrived at the home of the wolves. Mowgli, the man-cub, was sitting with his pack. He waved when he saw Baloo approaching. Mother Wolf invited the bear to sit for a while and take breakfast with them. Baloo had been raised to have good manners, so he accepted readily. Whilst they were eating, Mowgli talked about their plans for the day. Mowgli's suggestions involved going for a long walk through the jungle. There were some mountains he wanted to climb, several rivers he wished to swim in, and a few hidden trails he would like to explore. Baloo gave Mowgli's plans some thought and said, "Make that a long, rambling walk, with lots of rests along the way, and I'm in. This is the kind of day to bask in nature, to feel the wind on your fur and the ground beneath your feet. A day to savor." Mowgli looked skyward at the clear blue sky. A gentle breeze caressed his skin, and the melody of birdsong filled the air. He agreed with Baloo that it was most definitely a day for enjoying the beauty around them. And, Mowgli added, I can always climb a mountain tomorrow, if I feel like it. The pair said goodbye to the wolves before setting off through the jungle. The ground beneath them was dusty and warm. A green lizard lay outstretched on a sand-coloured rock, looking as though he was set to be there all day, and was happy at the prospect. Butterflies flittered above their heads, flashes of blues, yellows, and reds marking their flight through the trees. Mowgli and Baloo strolled towards the open plains. The ground changed from a dusty surface to one composed of soft grass. The occasional tuft of long stalks dotted the landscape, providing shady rest spots for smaller animals. Baloo and Mowgli spotted a mother lion lounging on the ground, watching her cubs at play. The golden-haired cubs played games which involved them tumbling over and over in the grass down a gentle incline. When they came to a stop, they hastened back to their starting position to begin the fun all over again. A peacock sauntered into view, with his feathers lying low behind him. As if sensing he was the centre of Mowgli and Baloo's attention, he raised his turquoise and scarlet feathers and opened them into a distinctive curved arch. He slowly turned around, making sure they got a complete view of his spectacular feathers. When he was satisfied that they had been entranced by his beauty, he lowered his feathers and continued on his way. Mowgli and Baloo carried on walking. The grass swayed in the wind, causing a soft whisper to catch on the breeze and travel through the open plains. Mowgli reached down and plucked a stalk of long grass. He shaped it as Baloo had taught him and brought the makeshift instrument to his mouth. He blew on it, releasing a low whistle which mingled hypnotically with the sound of the rustling grass. The bear and the boy walked on in companionable silence, knowing there was no need to talk. Before long, they came to a water hole. The sun shone brightly through the trees and cast dancing beams of light across the water. A group of rhinos were taking advantage of the water and wallowing in its cool depths, barely causing a ripple as they glided along. Some were immersed so fully that only their half-closed eyes were visible. Elephants stood at the far side of the waterhole, their long, grey trunks dipped in the water. Their offspring waited patiently behind them in anticipation of the refreshing body shower, which would soon be coming their way. Brightly coloured birds sang from the highest branches of the trees, sending a cheerful chorus of tweets, chirps, and whistles through the jungle. Emerald-winged dragonflies flitted over the river, their wings glinting in the morning rays of sun. Mowgli thought the water looked particularly inviting and asked Baloo if he'd like to take a dip with him. The bear declined and said Mowgli could go ahead without him, and pointed out it was about that time of the day when Baloo was due a nap. Baloo ambled over to the nearest tree and sat in its shade with his back supported by the thick trunk. He took some deep, refreshing breaths, inhaling the scents of tropical flowers and pine needles. His heavy eyes closed, and he soon fell into a peaceful nap. Above him, a mother monkey sat in the branches of the tree with her baby in her arms, not moving, just sitting there and gazing at her little one with her heart full of love. Mowgli slipped into the water and proceeded to swim slowly along, trying to mimic the rhinos by not causing a ripple with his movement. The warmth of the sun mixed with the coolness of the water made Mowgli feel light and carefree. After swimming for a while, he moved over to the side of the waterhole and rested his head against the grassy bank. He watched the animals of the jungle as they shared the tranquility of the water in peaceful harmony. Mowgli relaxed in the water. In the present moment, there was nothing else he needed to do, and nowhere else he needed to be. The sun moved slowly across the cloudless sky. Giraffes walked by the waterhole, their heads held regally high. Occasionally, they stopped at a tree and stretched their necks into the branches, in search of the tastiest leaves. After a while, Mowgli decided it was time to leave the water. He climbed out and shook droplets of water from his body. He knew the sun would soon dry him completely. He walked over to his snoozing friend and gently shook him. The big, brown bear opened his eyes and gave Mowgli a lazy smile. He announced his nap had been a most satisfying one, and he was ready to continue on their wanderings. He yawned and stretched out his arms before getting to his feet and stretching some more. The pair left the waterhole behind and continued on their journey. They headed towards the denser part of the forest and were soon surrounded by lush vegetation. An abundance of leafy ferns covered the ground, brushing against their legs as they strolled along. Light green moss hugged the trunks of tall trees. Garlands of vines swooped from branch to branch. Fallen trees on the jungle floor provided cozy habitats for smaller animals. The sun twinkled through the gaps in the leaves, sending glimmers of light over the ferns and logs. Crystals in rocks twinkled in the sun's rays, making them look like they were sprinkled with diamonds. Baloo and Mowgli heard a gentle rustling in the ferns and stopped to see which friend was coming their way. A pangolin by the name of Panchal emerged from the undergrowth. The intricate pattern on his body was highlighted by sunbeams and showed off every leaf-shaped plate to perfection. Panchal greeted Baloo and Mowgli with a warm smile and asked where they were going. "Just this way and that way," Baloo answered. "Maybe over there, maybe back that way. Just wandering through the jungle." "Me too," Panchal replied. "It's the perfect day for it." They exchanged more pleasantries before going their separate ways. Baloo and Mowgli walked deeper into the jungle. For a while, the sun wasn't able to find an opening through the trees, and their path ahead became darker and cozier under the canopy of leaves above them. The bird song turned quieter and became a soft background melody to their leisurely steps. Very soon, the trees started to thin out. Once more, the sun shone through the gaps. Streams of light landed on the path ahead, illuminating the way forward. The sound of a babbling stream became audible. Baloo and Mowgli followed the noise until they came to a crystal clear stream meandering along a shallow riverbed. Tiny, orange fish swam through the water, making their way around boulders and under floating pieces of wood. Baloo picked a paw full of leaves from a tree. He gave some to Mowgli. They walked closer to the stream and stopped at the side of it. They dropped the leaves into the water and watched as each leaf was taken downstream, one after the other, floating softly, some being swept away by the water, and others gliding from side to side. One twirled merrily in the water, as though in a dance. When the last of the leaves had been released, Baloo and Mowgli walked further downstream until they came to a crossing point. They stepped into the stream, feeling the cool water wash over their feet. The pebbles beneath them were smooth and easy to walk on. They crossed to the other side and continued on their way, heading into the part of the jungle where the monkeys lived. It wasn't long before they heard the heartwarming sound of chattering monkeys. Mowgli and Baloo stopped at the nearest tree and looked upwards. They saw a family of monkeys sitting in a line along a bough, each one grooming the one in front. Apart from the monkey at the very front, who seemed to have the best of the deal. When the monkeys saw Mowgli and Baloo, they called down and offered to pamper them. Baloo declined and said if he were on the receiving end of such a relaxing treatment, he would be sure to fall asleep immediately. And as much as he loved sleeping, he wasn't quite ready for his next nap yet. Mowgli also said a polite no to the offer, but asked if he could climb their tree to see what the view was like from up there. The monkeys said yes, and welcomed Mowgli up into their home. Mowgli was up the tree in seconds. The view from the top was magnificent. The jungle looked like a carpet of leaves stretching out for miles and miles. Snow-dusted mountains in the distance framed the pleasing panorama. A couple of monkeys offered to show Mowgli their favorite route through the trees. Mowgli thanked them, then spent a very enjoyable time moving from treetop to treetop along a bridge of boughs which the monkeys had constructed. Baloo sat on a shaded rock and closed his eyes. He listened to the sounds of the jungle around him and felt a peacefulness softly flowing through him. When Mowgli returned to Baloo's side, he gently shook the bear and told him it was time to wake up. Baloo opened his eyes and said he hadn't been asleep, just merely resting. They said goodbye to the monkeys before going on their way. The noise of rushing water soon came to their attention, but it wasn't the babbling noise of a stream or the flow of a river. It was something altogether different. They navigated the pine-strewn path in front of them until they came to a spectacular waterfall. A silver-tipped curtain of water flowed over the edge of a cliff and down a series of stepped rocks before coming to a rest in a sparkling, clear lagoon. Baloo and Mowgli were mesmerized by the sight of the natural wonder and stood in awed silence, watching the never-ending cascade of water. As they'd been walking for a while, Baloo suggested they cool off in the lagoon. Mowgli thought that was an excellent suggestion. Within minutes, they were immersed in the lagoon and floating on their backs. They gazed at the blue sky. A couple of small clouds floated by. Baloo asked Mowgli what he saw, with a contented sigh. Clouds, Mowgli said, puzzledly. Baloo chuckled. Well, yes, clouds. But what do you think they look like? Mowgli looked closer, squinting slightly in concentration. That one looks like the water hole viewed from way on high. Baloo nodded. It was the same shape as the water hole. He kept watching as it floated gently across the sky. I think that it looks like Panchal. It's brown, like the pangolin, with a little point that could be his nose. Mowgli considered this before agreeing, as the two watched the fluffy cloud, its vapor dispersed, and the shape distorted in front of their eyes. What about now? Baloo asked. Mowgli gazed into the sky. It looks like you, Baloo, he said. He lazily pointed out the shape of Baloo's long body in the wisps, the protruding snout, and two small tufts for ears. Baloo pointed to the other cloud, drifting lightly through the atmosphere. That one is especially wispy, he observed. Each tendril looks like the roots of a banyan tree. Mowgli agreed. There is one just like that in the clearing near my place. They drifted on their backs like this for a while, watching the clouds. Using their hands as paddles, they moved closer to the bottom of the waterfall until they felt the refreshing spray of water alighting on their faces. They stayed there for a while, not doing anything, just floating. Sometime later, Mowgli noticed more clouds had appeared in the sky. Some of them were turning grey around the edges. They were familiar with how swiftly the weather could change in the jungle, and the stillness in the air confirmed a tropical shower was on the way. They climbed out of the lagoon and took refuge in a small cave at the side of the waterfall. And it wasn't a moment too soon. The rain had come. A tropical downpour of refreshing raindrops, which washed away the heat of the day. Drops landed on the surface of the lagoon, resulting in hundreds of tiny ripples, radiating ever outwards. Rain trickled down leaves, dripping from one to the other, before joining a trickle of water on the ground. The sky turned darker. Mowgli moved closer to Baloo in the cozy cave and felt a comforting warmth coming from his dear friend. Just as quickly as it had started, the rain began to slow. The clouds cleared and the sun came out. A beautiful rainbow graced the sky for a whole minute before fading away into nothing more than a delightful memory. Baloo and Mowgli came out of the cave. The air smelled fresh and clean. The birdsong, which had grown quiet during the rain, started up again and sounded even more joyful. The two friends continued on their way through the beautiful, lush jungle. Now and again, they picked soft fruit from the bushes and low-hanging branches. They ate sticky, sweet pawpaw and tangy black plums. Baloo chewed juicy, prickly pears clasped between his paws and picked large yellow bananas from the trees, peeling them with a content smile. Mowgli collected a coconut, which Baloo cracked open for him with ease, and drank its sweet water. Each mouthful seemed even more delicious than usual on that wonderful day. All too soon, the sun completed its journey across the sky, leaving behind a spectacular sunset of orange and pink. Baloo and Mowgli were too far from home to begin their journey back before nightfall. After a brief discussion, they decided a night under the stars would be the perfect end to their perfect day. A sleepy sloth bear hanging from a nearby tree overheard them and said they were welcome to share her home for the night. With a yawn, she added, "If you don't want to sleep up here, the ground around the tree is very comfy. I've fallen asleep there once or twice." It was an offer Baloo and Mowgli couldn't refuse. They thanked the kind sloth bear, but she didn't hear them because she'd already fallen back into her nighttime dreams. Mowgli collected the softest moss he could find and arranged it around the base of the tree. Baloo went in search of food and came back with supplies. An owl hooted from the top of the tree as the pair settled themselves down for the night. They looked through the leaves above them and saw the moon shining brightly. Stars twinkled into view one by one until the sky was a blanket of glimmering lights. Mowgli suggested they should count the stars. The two of them lay by the base of the tree, looking into the sky above. "How many stars do you think there are, Baloo?" Mowgli asked. "More than a bear could ever count, Mowgli," Baloo replied with a yawn. "But maybe you could count them." Mowgli agreed and pointed up into the air as he counted the stars one by one. With each number, Baloo's eyelids moved a smidge closer together. Before Mowgli had finished counting even a corner of the sky, he noticed Baloo was almost fully asleep. Mowgli stopped counting and relaxed on the soft moss. He turned to Baloo just before he drifted off and said it had been a wonderful day, and he hoped they could do it again soon. "How does tomorrow sound?" Baloo asked with a smile. Mowgli was about to reply, but then he heard the familiar sound of Baloo's low, rumbling snores and realized his friend had fallen asleep. Mowgli's eyes grew heavier and a wonderful weariness settled on his limbs. He yawned and closed his eyes. Mowgli drifted into a deep, restful sleep. His perfect jungle day turned into an enchanting jungle night. As the two friends slept, the jungle slept around them. The moon made its soft, slow ascent across the sky. Trees waved softly, as if breathing deeply in the night air. The light breeze rustled across Baloo's fur before settling down itself as the air became still. The rustling and scurrying noises slowed and quieted as the animals of the jungle lay down for the night. Nocturnal animals moved in the trees, almost imperceptibly, moving calmly so as not to disturb the drowsy animals around them. All that was left was the soft sound of crickets trilling in the night, and the slow breathing and occasional soft snore of the deeply sleeping creatures beneath the tree. Amongst the soft light of the stars, the moon continued on its journey across the sky, on its trajectory towards the horizon, at which point the sun would rise and the jungle would come alive once more.